2011 to 2013 was a rough time. Big earthquake and tsunami hits Japan. Sword Art Online was somehow popular, and for One Piece, the worst unimaginable thing happened. Fishman Island. But in 2013 we did get Metal Gear Rising, so I say it balances out.
Controlled by something evil. Beings. The DNA of the soul.
But it doesn't stop there, as the time skip continues to fall from the holy grace Marineford once had by the balls and throw them into an active volcano, as the next arc is also considered one of the worst arcs, and the Great Mighty Pooh crown goes to Punk Hazard, a lovely kid-friendly arc that involves child kidnapping, drugging those kids, and making them more of an addict than the southern alcoholic father. And let's not forget a new idea for One Piece staples, an actual death. Let's just add those to the list. And we have ourselves what many will say is a boring setting, another laughable, lackluster villain, horrible pacing once again, and more running around than a kid at a Toys R Us. Mash that Dragon Ball Fusion dance and we got Punk Hazard. But is it as bad as people say? Is Punk Biohazard a bad arc? The story starts how most of these arcs begins, Luffy living by Darkwing Duck's motto.
Let's get dangerous.
So this whole arc is actually a detour, or what some One Piece fans call these canon filler. So they split the group into 4 nutcases, including Robin, who's been slowly showing her personality, and she's about as zany as them.
Luffy, that was supposed to be secret.
It's hard to believe we've got so many big names in one cell. It's quite a view.
You're right. It's so funny.
So they land on the first island, being the after effects of a gender reveal party, and encounter a dragon, so Zoro and Luffy become Dragonborns and feast on their winnings. Meanwhile, the other groups gets drugged like they're at a local fraternity, and kidnapped into a factory and meet a talking head. Then when they were escaping, they encountered the drug-up kids, all because Caesar Clown, a scientist who worked for Vegapunk, someone we heard so much about but we never seen yet. But Caesar is testing out on the kids to create the greatest NBA team of giants. And the Straw Hats almost abandoned them, leaving them on the side of the curb, but Nami, being a child once, has empathy for them. Suddenly, people who escaped the Forgotten Vault have returned. Smoker, who can now use arm in hockey, but still get his ass beaten. Twice.
There's 3, actually.
And Tashigi, who pulled a Kim K, but then the real star of the show approaches, the new warlord, Rice Hat, where his Devil Fruit powers develop into the power of being too broken. Defeats Smoker and swaps his and Tashigi's minds. Then he swaps the minds of Group B's Straw Hats, which they all react accordingly. Luffy's group reunites with them along with the Rice Hat, and are told by the local Florida man, the Supernovas, the 11 pirates from Sabaody with over 100 million bounties, are now called the Worst Generation. I mean, Gen Z is called the worst generation, but all we have is lousy mime dances. But Law has a plan. He asks Luffy to make an alliance with him to defeat one of the 4 emperors. Then Caesar comes out of his local Reddit cave to get his ass beaten into, but then he realizes the arc will only be 20 episodes, so he pulls out a secret weapon. Bullshit, and kidnaps everyone. This is all part 1. All of this I said was around 20 episodes. Of course, I kind of forgot a few things, like some secret person named Joker's pulling the strings along with his Ubisoft stockholders. But this is all 20 episodes, just non-stop movement. Everything going at a wonderful pace until it all comes crashing down like a Twitter user's chances of getting any bitches. The second half is perfectly described as panned out due to being stuck in a factory. It just runs its course. They try to just always head towards the exit. A highlight though for the second half is the fights, but for 2 fights in particular, Smoker versus Vertigo and Tashigi versus Future Dead Frosty. But then there's a problem with those two. It ends horribly as a stronger pirate comes in and deals the killing blow. It could have gave them both so much cool factor, but then they don't. It was very cash money of them. Luffy versus Caesar is kind of the same way, but he didn't need anybody to help him out. It's a double-edged sword. It shows the time skip wasn't a waste and allows to show the growth that they had, but at the cost, all the Marines look so much weaker in comparison, especially with Smoker. What I call Smoker is wasted potential. Take a look at all the times we've seen him. He really only had 3 times throughout the series and small cameos in between. Back in Loketown, it made it seem like he would always follow Luffy, the one who escaped him, but in reality he really doesn't. Not really a cat and mouse game if you say. Another problem most people complain about is the pacing. Surprisingly, from what Google says, it says that Punk Hazard is 1-to-1 episode to chapter ratio, which is just how Fishman Island was compared to other arcs. Arcs like Amazon Lily, Impel Down, or Marineford were technically less ratioed, but they're also smaller arcs. The iconic Massive War arc is only 33 chapters, which compared to Punk Hazard, that's 13 more. 13 chapters seem small to One Piece standards, but that can be a whole miniature arc in itself. So with those extra arcs, it makes Punk Hazard really drawn out. So the arc ends with defeating Caesar, but Joker has 2 generals over to get Caesar. But the unexpected happened. Frankie has Spotlight. He crop dusted away from the second half. Other than Law, he's unironically an MVP, because he was the only one there to defeat them and save Caesar this whole time, but he didn't know. Meanwhile, Caesar, beating up like Matt in Wii Sports, has a Hail Mary, unironically ruining Joker's plan of blowing up the island. And so they all said their goodbyes. Law tells Joker to revoke him being a warlord in 24 hours, and they head straight to filler arc, but it's only 3 episodes, and it really only shows Luffy, Law, and Chopper, with an interesting comeback to Alabasta, as one of the Kung Fu seals here has his moments. Unfortunately, this arc is kind of forgettable. So the main villain has a pet kink and controls anybody with his BDSM fruit because his Club Penguin account was banned. Only terrifying highlights are the 4chan user making Chop Chop wear a maid outfit for some reason, a small fight with Luffy versus Rice Hat, and the King Seal has arm hockey, so he's doing better than most. Then there's a canon event at the end with Joker announcing his resigning, and Kid with his alliance, and exposing Luffy and Law's alliance too. Punk Hazard had so much going for it at the beginning, but unfortunately it just fell apart like most people after a Taco Bell night. It may seem like I disliked the arc a lot, but I actually have respect for it too. It's one of the last times we'll see the Straw Hats have a island adventure at the good old days of East Blue, before it gets consumed into a overarching story, which thanks to the Talking Head, who's now a full body, and his son I forgot to talk about, are a huge staple as it seems like they'll be with them till Wano. And we'll also say goodbye to another era. An era of island hopping adventures, and now we move on to 80 plus to 200 plus long arcs, which is the next one, Dressrosa, which I heard is one of the biggest complaints with One Piece, at least with the anime, is the pacing. I mean, it's only 100 episodes? That's only like 30 hours of watching to find out.